while ago, I asked about your process of how you evaluate new supplements that you hear about.
Mm.
And luckily enough, I don't know if you found them recently, but you mentioned two that were interesting, and you wanted to show me how you decide whether or not to take them. You said it would be good to have one that ends up being a good one and one that doesn't. You told me what they were, so I did a bit of digging this morning, but maybe 5 to 10 minutes.
On each one?
Total.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to guess which one is the good one and which one isn't. But first, you could maybe tell me a bit what each of them are, because I don't even know how to pronounce them.
Okay. Well, the two supplements that I asked you to look at were Fatty15, which is definitely a new supplement, and you'll see it marketed heavily. I'll say that. And then another one, the other one was called Astaxanthin, which is an older, not very old, but definitely older than Fatty15 supplement.
Okay.
And I think they're two supplements that are good to look at because they kind of demonstrate how you can apply a framework in evaluating whether or not you want to take the supplement or investigate it further, or just totally say it's not something I'm going to look into anymore.
How do you want to do it? First one of them and then the other, or do you want to go?
Or I could kind of explain my, general way of determining.
Okay, but let me first take the guess.
Okay.
I mean, you kind of, I think, already gave it away.
Yeah, I couldn't help.
But that was already my... should I just tell you what my 5 to 10 minutes...
Yeah, why don't you tell that, and then I'll tell you how I look at it and maybe ways to modify what you did.
Okay. But I was a lot more brief than I am.
Yeah.
So I think I looked up the Fatty15 first. And that wasn't even the compound. It was the brand or something, or how it's being marketed as. So that was already kind of a... didn't inspire confidence. So I had to look up what it actually was, and it's some kind of something similar to omega-3. To be honest, I really wanted it to be the good one, so to speak, because the promised benefits were quite interesting. But when I looked up, I used examine.com, and I looked it up on PubMed, and there wasn't anything about it. I think I found maybe one paper, and I didn't read it, but compared to, what was it called?
Astaxanthin.
But compared to Astaxanthin, which had a lot more, I think it had meta-analyses, and so
yes.
It was a lot more reliable. And by that point, I was able to fairly confidently guess that it would be your good choice.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, that's basically correct.
Right. I mean, if it was something that I was evaluating for me to take or not, which I will look into after this, I will use this conversation to actually decide whether or not I'm taking these. I'm going to try them. So I didn't like really look into what it does. I mean, I like briefly did, but because I know that you're very not, maybe is safe the word? Like you don't try experimental stuff. I kind of knew it would be your thing, and I just thought the rest I'll discuss it with you.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, I would be interested to see what you would have concluded if you weren't doing it as a little exercise for me.
Right.
But maybe I'll talk about in general how I analyze whether I'm going to take a new supplement or not, and what goes into that.
Sounds good.
I have a few like preconditions almost that I take into account before I'm even like digging into the research or the safety trials or the effectiveness trials. I want to talk about those first. And I think some of these are kind of relevant to the current supplement landscape that we have now, in that there are so many ways to market your supplement that just didn't exist prior to like social media and YouTube and things like that. So I think because of that, one of my main like conditions is how much it's marketed. So like it kind of affects how skeptical I am further on in reading any of the studies about the supplement. So if it's highly marketed, that's kind of like a skepticism multiplier. It just multiplies my skepticism about a new supplement anyway. And you can see this in like, you saw these in the NAD boosters, that those were heavily marketed. And now this Fatty15, like I just saw an ad for it on Instagram like an hour ago because I was looking it up on on Google before. And yeah, that's what happens. And I think that it just the marketing, the like you'll create a company like to make this supplement and then you'll market it. It's just all of the data then is more suspect than if it wasn't just one company making it.
Right. So it is one company making this fatty thing.
Yes, currently it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Another condition I have is that I generally try to avoid newer supplements. I want there to be time that the supplements in the market, there's time for making multiple different studies on humans. Because if you think that the supplements can be beneficial and can have positive effects on your body, you also have to believe that it can have negative effects. So I want to make sure that whatever I'm taking isn't going to have negative effects. And that's much more difficult to determine if it's a really new supplement.
I guess most people have this, like I think I would believe that if something isn't proven to be fairly safe, it wouldn't be on the market.
You would hope that, but
like
what's fairly safe? Like if it's somewhat safe.
Okay.
It's not black and white, I guess.
Let me be more bold. I think the worst thing, but I assume the worst thing that could happen by buying supplements from like Amazon or whatever is that I don't get any benefits and I just waste it away. How much damage can I do to myself purely by buying supplements from Amazon?
It depends. Like, if part of the problem is that you have to rely on the manufacturer of the supplement, and a lot of the newer supplements, they're not yet available from established manufacturers with really controlled supply chains, and you have to rely on this small manufacturer who might not have as much expertise and control over their manufacturing process and supply chain. And there have been many cases where the supplements have been contaminated with pretty nasty things like heavy metals, like different steroids that you wouldn't want. Like, it's a common problem in sports supplements that like the shady manufacturers will accidentally put an actual steroid in the supplement so that the users think it's working really well, but it's really an actual steroid.
That's the first time I hear of that.
It's happened.
But okay.
I think that's happened less and less, but it has happened.
But that's not anything bad about the supplement per se.
Right. That is true. Right. Part of it depends on what kind of supplement it is. I think there are different classes that potentially have more possible side effects, negative side effects. Like if it's an herb that's newly discovered, I think those are more probable that there'll be some negative side effects that aren't yet discovered until a later time period. But it's not a black and white thing. And I think, yes, I'm probably being a bit conservative, but I'd rather miss out on a couple years or whatever of potential benefit to avoid some potential negative effects.
Fair enough.
If you'd asked me 20 years ago, maybe I would have been like, yeah, I'll try it if it's new and seems safe enough. But I don't know. I guess I've gotten a bit more conservative with that over the years. But maybe because I'm also more aware of the problems.
Yeah, that makes sense. So your first criteria is you would probably avoid anything that came to the market within the last year or two.
It definitely, yeah. I mean, I don't have like a cutoff amount, but yeah, the newer it is, the more suspicious I am of it.
Okay. And another thing you said was if it's being made by one manufacturer that's new. I mean, that's definitely a red flag for me. If it's just out of nowhere, this manufacturer comes and it's like, we found this amazing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't more be making them?
Well, they try to patent it in some way. And if they can do that, I guess that's the argument that
I see.
They spent the money, developing the way they process it or something, and they should.
Okay. So in theory, it's possible that some new startup comes up with a pill that reverses aging and patents it, and they'd be the only ones selling it for some time.
Theoretically, it's more difficult with supplements because they're supposed to be natural products, which are much more difficult to patent than an actual drug.
Oh, are we making a distinction?
There is a distinction, at least in the practical sense.
And what is that?
That, like, at least in the...
what do you call... I just call supplements whatever I'm taking. But you just call it a drug.
I meant in terms of a pharmaceutical drug that's gone through, FDA trials.
And the Fatty15, is it a drug or is it a...
That's a supplement. Yeah. And here we're only talking about supplements.
Okay.
I don't want to get into the pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah.
But you were just describing something that almost sounded like a drug.
Well,
but I think the answer to your question, yes, theoretically, if there was some processing technique that a company discovered and they patented it, yes, they could be the only one to make that supplement, theoretically.
Okay. It's just not as simple as it being a natural thing. And okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's next on your...
So I did mention that I'm generally more cautious with herbs just because they always seem to have many effects. They're likely to have contamination from growing in maybe not the best environments. There's just a lot of variability in that kind of supplement that you see at least less of in things like an amino acid or some other like Fatty15, like a fatty acid that you're just like.
So in this case, the Fatty15 does pass your...
It's not an herb, that's okay. Like you always see herbs there's some new herb that's marketed as like a testosterone booster.
Okay.
You've probably seen those. And
I've seen herbs being marketed as everything.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, yeah, you might find one that slightly increases your testosterone, but then it might do harm to your liver. Like it's hard. Herbs are very, they always seem to have some benefits and some risks. And I do take some somewhat regularly, but they're ones that have been around a long time and seem to be
right. It's not like
safe.
You avoid all herbs.
Correct. I just want more data on them. One thing that I do really try to avoid is those proprietary blends.
What are those?
And so that means that when a supplement company makes a product with multiple ingredients, they can make the blend proprietary where they don't have to list the amount of each ingredient. They can just say the total amount is 1 gram, and then it's made up of like 5. You know what's in it, but you don't know how much of each ingredient. And I just don't like that. I want to know how much I'm taking.
I've never seen that. That sounds terrible.
Maybe that's only in the US that's allowed. I'm not sure.
Maybe.
That is pretty common here, and they're always so expensive.
Yeah, I've noticed that whenever it's a blend in general.
Yep. It's always much cheaper to buy the ingredients individually.
Yeah. I was looking at magnesium. Not just this example, it happens so many times. But the latest time I was looking at magnesium, there was one with vitamin C that was like 50% more expensive and it has like a tiny amount of vitamin C added in it or something, and like why?
Yeah.
And then they call it some rejuvenation
special
thing.
formula. Yeah. 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 I think that's generally the kind of preconditions that I look at. So I made this very overly simplistic flow chart of should I take the supplement?
Okay.
And it's of course not binary like this. It's not like a yes or no, but it just for illustration, it's easier. It's more like the hierarchy of what I'm looking at.
Okay.
So first I want to know, does it have a long history? If I'm okay with that.
Why wouldn't you start with, is it effective?
Often that is the most difficult to prove.
I see.
I'm more concerned, is it safe? Because if it's safe, worst case is I waste a bit of money.
Right.
But if it's effective and not really safe, then that's not good.
Are there supplements that have a long history and are unsafe?
For sure. Well, safe is always relative to your risk level. Nothing's going to be 100% safe.
Sure, so, but what would you consider unsafe for you?
For me, like if there's indication that there's any side effects more than just like stomach upset or headache or things like that. Like if there's anything that indicates it's bad for your liver, I'm really, really cautious with that.
Okay.
Many supplements actually have that are available, especially lots of herbs.
Okay.
That's kind of my decision criteria there. Because every supplement's going to have some sort of side effects mentioned, like, headache or nausea. But those are just almost always present in the studies.
Noticed, yeah.
But if they have like an actual biological marker that your liver's not happy, like, your AST levels are higher than they should be after you take the supplement, then
what's that?
It's just a liver enzyme that
how would I know
you can measure?
That?
Well, you'd have to. It would be in the studies that you look
like
at,
on paper. Gotcha.
Yeah. Not you specifically, which
I
that's another
just
thing.
Wake up and be like, I feel like my AST levels are high today.
Yeah. Or ALT. What's the other one? Yeah. So if it's safe, then I'll look at if it's effective, and that's usually just there's a lot of stuff that goes into determining is it safe or is it effective, but that's just a simplistic way to look at it.
Gotcha. So I feel this is not in order of priority for you necessarily, but more like what's easily verifiable. Because it's like, if it doesn't have a long history, you can very quickly find out and just wait it out. Whereas whether or not it's safe is a bit more difficult to prove, and then whether or not it's effective, maybe even more so.
Yeah. For it to be safe, I need the long history.
Yeah.
And then for it to be effective, I need it to be safe.
Gotcha.
And I guess a few more things about what I look for in determining if it's safe and if it's effective. Like, I want actual human trials, ideally meta-analyses that are longer term, at least months. I also don't want any proposed mechanisms that might indicate it's harmful, but that doesn't always mean it's harmful, because there are a lot of, as we discussed in, I think, the previous one, just because it has a cellular mechanism that indicates it might be harmful to the cell doesn't mean necessarily anything to the human overall.
Yep.
Also, if it's safe, I will prefer that multiple manufacturers make the supplement and that they're reputable. I guess the effectiveness is more difficult to determine, though, because sometimes it's not that it can be individual, so it can be effective for you, but not me. Even creatine, probably the most widely studied, and almost everybody would say it is effective. It's one of the most effective supplements for performance, but there are some people, a minority, that just don't seem to respond to it. And
Interesting.
It's unclear why, and there are some people who really seem to respond well to much more than average to it. So you never know.
I think it would be good if you could. Well, you told me what your process is, what your criteria are like. If you could show me how you go through it.
Yeah, let's imagine I just saw an ad on Instagram. I'm like, what is this thing? So yeah, first I want to know, what is it? What is Fatty15? And
yeah,
it's basically it's a fatty acid, specifically an odd chain fatty acid that is a component of dairy fat, but also it's in some meat and fish. So it does exist naturally. The product is just that specific fatty acid isolated.
Is it similar to omega-3 in that sense?
Yeah, it's a fatty acid, yeah. Omega-3 is just another kind of fatty acid.
Okay. So this aspect of it is like promising.
It's promising, at least for safety. It appears in nature. It's, at least on the face of it, seems relatively safe.
Okay.
Of course, some of it depends on the dose. I don't know if it's safe at higher levels that you supplement with, but at least it's not an outright no.
Okay.
So I just want to show a few things from the website that just feel, it's like science, but it's really marketing. It's like using sciencey words, but it's really marketing.
Yeah.
They're like, a big peer-reviewed scientific study dropped comparing Fatty15 to omega-3.
Right.
And then they say Fatty15 was found to be better, broader, and safer at repairing cells and restoring cellular health compared to the purest and highest performing omega-3. It's so over the top. Like, if you actually read that, like, omega-3 has been around for a long time, and there's tons of studies showing the benefits to omega-3. Yeah, it's a bit complicated. It's like a really strongly worded marketing speak thing that
feels like a car salesman.
Yeah.
It's too clean. The website is too SEO friendly. Yeah, this was made by a marketing team, not like...
Here, like, we know how C15-0 actively repairs, restores, and revitalizes our long-term health at the cellular level, including by strengthening our cells and us against age-related breakdown, repairing mitochondrial function, blah, 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 naturally activating receptors that regulates our metabolism, immunity, mood, sleep, and appetite. Now you have the 101 on Fatty15. Okay. It's just so icky. I don't know.
Yeah.
In a way. And I want to look at this study just very briefly.
Yeah.
They are talking about this study, which is titled Broader and Safer Clinically Relevant Activities of pentadecanoic acid compared to omega-3. That is the fatty 15.
Oh, I was expecting to see some page on their website that's like, here's the study. But
it's linked in there somewhere, like way at the end. But they do link to it.
I thought that they would be like, we did this study, and like just like have this page on their website that's like, here were the results of our study. And
they did do this study.
Of course, okay.
This author is one of the co-founders of Fatty 15.
Gotcha.
And this company that makes Fatty 15.
Gotcha.
So it's an evaluation of an emerging essential fatty acid across 12 primary human cell-based disease systems. Okay, fine. So it's a long study. I don't want to go over everything in it because it is long, but it's basically no human study. Like, it's only based on cells. I want to just pull out 2 quotes from that study that just demonstrate maybe the kind of study it is.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that in this study, it was not like a randomized controlled trial on humans. It was just a study looking at basically, is this fatty 15 molecule, does it have similar effects to other known anti-aging drugs? And like, it's very weird.
So they just
not that weird, but
tested it on cells?
They tested it on cells and basically looked at, did it have similar effects to other longevity type drugs, in that they just made like a correlation between them. And they said, okay, it kind of looks like it does similar stuff to some other drugs like metformin or rapamycin.
On the cell?
Oh, just on the cell, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Just on the cell. I just want to read a couple quotes from the study. Given this study's demonstration of common cell-based profiles between C15-0, that's fatty 15, and bupropion, which is an antidepressant medication, this study is the first to support this emerging essential fatty acid as a potential means to prevent and manage depression and mood disorders. And the next quote, which is similar, given the growing and repeated evidence of C15-0 as a beneficial odd-chain saturated fatty acid, there is need to reevaluate current nutritional guidelines that continue to recommend lowered intake of all dietary saturated fats. This is the conclusion you make from like a cellular based study that doesn't have any measurement of effects on humans. It's just like, this fatty acid kind of looks like it does similar things to these other good drugs. And they say that that's a potential means to manage depression, and that we should reevaluate nutritional recommendations by this one study. Like, it's such an overreach. It's so crazy. I don't know.
Would you normally have gotten to this stage, or just dismissed it based on it being a new drug with...
I might have gotten to this state, maybe, if I just got annoyed enough at all of their marketing.
just
for spite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has not been peer reviewed, I take it.
It has technically been peer reviewed, but that's a whole nother issue. And just because it's been peer reviewed doesn't mean it's like a significant study that's like totally legit.
Are the peers the co-founders of the...
Yeah. I mean, they should be somebody from the the article, the publication. But
Okay.
yeah, like this is the co-founder of the company that makes Fatty15.
Okay.
So she wrote this article, and I don't know who the other author is, just some colleague, I guess. I'm not sure.
And that qualifies it as a peer review?
Because it's been published in a scientific article that should have some peer review process.
Okay.
Who knows how good that process is for this journal. I am not sure. So it's a bit overreaching, I'll say. And if you want to look at the next study, that also written by the same author, who happens to be the co-founder of the Fatty15 company, that is titled "The Cellular Stability Hypothesis: Evidence of Ferroptosis and Accelerated Aging-Associated Diseases as Newly Identified Nutritional Pentadecanoic Acid C15 Deficiency Syndrome." Okay. A main point of this study is that she proposes a new syndrome, which is called cellular fragility syndrome.
Let me
guess.
And
the definition of that syndrome is that it's a deficiency of
I knew it.
C15.
I knew it.
The Fatty15 acid. And the way to the way the way to cure this syndrome is obviously just take some Fatty15. But it's such a, it's hard to read this and not be totally suspicious of the whole thing.
Right. Like, it's not just some new drug that hasn't been tested yet. It's not just some new supplement that hasn't been tested yet. They're clearly trying to sell you something fast.
Right.
Now.
Right.
Take it now. It's
like, here's a new problem we identified that you probably have.
Right.
And by the way, here's the cure that we happen to develop. I don't know. I try, but it's hard not to be entirely skeptical of this whole thing.
No, I think your skepticism is well placed.
Yeah. So, and the founder is on their website, says she's a serial entrepreneur, successfully launched lots of companies, including this one.
Okay.
So it seems like it may be just a good business model.
Maybe we should pivot.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, just to overall go back to the framework I had in the beginning, it's pretty easy to go down my flow chart and say, okay, there's not a long history, probably wouldn't take it. Is it safe? Maybe, but there have been a few randomized controlled trials that I found actually on humans.
Oh.
It's probably safe, but there haven't been any very large studies, and there aren't meta-analyses. There just hasn't been that amount of time.
Well, in the small study, did they measure any benefits?
The randomized controlled trial, you mean? In one of them, do you want to look at it?
Briefly.
It was 12 weeks, which is okay, but it was really a small trial. Only 30 participants. 20 participants received the C15 Fatty15 supplement, and 10 received the placebo. And that supplement, of course, was provided by the company that makes Fatty15. And
they weren't the one conducting the study this time.
No,
Okay.
no. But so they did say that they found some decrease in some liver enzymes and increase in hemoglobin, which are both benefits to the supplement. But it was only in they made this like after the fact analysis where they seem to have chosen a subgroup of that original 20 and then looked at they chose those people because they had higher blood levels of this C15 fatty acid. And in those people, it seemed to show these benefits, but that was determined after the fact, like after they made the study. This wasn't like a cutoff threshold that they determined before the study.
It's amazing the number of things you could...
It's just a bit fishy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's maybe there's something there, maybe not. But this study definitely doesn't prove anything. It's so small. At least there were no safety issues. But
overall, how many studies have been done on this?
So there's definitely been at least a dozen, but some have been like just studying specific fatty acids in dairy, of which C15 is one of them. So I guess that's kind of what I mean, that there have been, more than a dozen.
How many trials have there been?
Trials like with humans?
Mm-hmm.
I think there were only a few. By a few, maybe like 5 at the most that I found. There could be a few more, but at least from my initial investigation, I only found just a few, and they weren't, at least the ones I saw, they weren't of the best quality, and they were smaller amounts of participants. So that's because it's a newer supplement.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the future there'll be better quality studies with larger amount of participants if the scientific interest is there or the funding is there.
Right.
We'll have to see. All right. So that study that we talked about was just a little fishy. I just want to close with kind of looking at the website a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
This is just one of the blogs that they posted a couple weeks ago, I guess. It's just like we talked about, just the writing of it it's almost like they put it in ChatGPT and told them to write as sleazy marketing material as possible.
Write an SEO-friendly blog post.
Exactly. Like
using
excitedly
these keywords.
Excitedly, a slew of new peer-reviewed papers are further validating C15 as the first essential fatty acid to be discovered in more than 90 years. I mean, I wouldn't say that. And like all of these, additionally, studies have demonstrated moms with higher C15 have children with improved body growth and cognitive development. And all of these things they're just large overreaches and exaggerations of what was actually in the studies if you read them. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go through each study, but like they're clearly exaggerating the findings in a marketing friendly way. And just how they talk is like, okay, what is an essential fatty acid? Good question.
Right.
Yeah. It's a good question.
But I mean, to play devil's advocate, if you were a startup company and you had found some really beneficial molecule, you kind of have no choice but to. I mean, let me put it this way. If they actually had the data backing up their claims, like good quality studies, this would be okay. But this alone is...
It would be less bad. I wouldn't say it would be okay.
But, I mean, okay.
No, I understand what you're saying.
If a company does come up with this and they do want to patent it, they still want to sell it. And they will have to play this stupid SEO game.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be hard to blame them solely for that. As much as I hate it.
I agree. I would be curious to understand how they were able to patent a supplement. I know that's more difficult than like a pharmaceutical drug, but yeah, and a patent doesn't mean that something is scientifically valid or anything. It can mean a lot of different things. So just further on in this blog, they just list some criteria to determine if a fatty acid is essential. And one of them is that low levels of the fatty acid result in a nutritional deficiency syndrome. But as we saw earlier, that nutritional deficiency syndrome is one that the founder of this company defined.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just suspicious, and it's definitely not a widely recognized essential fatty acid. You cannot find much literature from non-related entities or scientists saying that, yes, we agree it's an essential fatty acid.
So from what I'm gathering, this guy who is the creator of this supplement also invented this deficiency and co-authored studies saying that said deficiency can be treated by the supplement that he invented.
Yes, you're only wrong that it was a woman. I think I think they're a husband and wife team, actually. Okay. And she did the scientific research, and he is a medical doctor, and I guess, it's just co-founder. And yes, basically you're right.
The chain of events is...
Yeah, it's correct. So, yeah, the last thing from the website, I just want to look at the price. Yeah. They're charging...
subscription $50. Of course it is.
Of course it's a subscription, which, yeah, you love those subscriptions that are difficult to cancel, I'm sure. And it's so, like, you get a 30-day trial kit, but it's a 90-day subscription. So are you getting like 3 30-day trial kits? Like, it's just unclear. And in any case, they're charging, like, for one pill, they're charging like $1.66 for that. But that better work. Like, that's an expensive supplement.
Yeah.
One of the most expensive ones I've seen for a single pill. And you can get this fatty acid in lots of food, in dairy products, in cheese, of course. And I don't know how legit this website is, but at least it claims to list some amounts of C15 in milligrams.
Okay.
So, like, they're saying sour cream of all the food products, sour cream has the highest per 100 grams of 350 milligrams per 100 grams of sour cream. And, like, regular cheese is 300 milligrams.
And they were selling...
And they were selling one pill, which is 100 milligrams
Okay.
for $1.66.
Gotcha.
I mean, I know it's new and it's expensive, but isolating fatty acid, it shouldn't be the most complicated manufacturing process out there. It's
I don't think
you're
that's
you're paying for their marketing, basically.
Yeah, I don't think the manufacturing process is where your dollars are going in here.
Yeah, I'd like to see the margins they've got on these. Anyway, I think enough about that supplement.
Right.
I mean, the summary is that for me, it's too new. It's probably safe because it's a natural component of dairy fat, even though for that specific component, there's not so much actual human safety data, but giving them the benefit of the doubt, it's probably safe. And is it effective? I think it's totally unclear. Mm-hmm. The studies are unclear, and there's just not enough evidence. And I would not take the leap to pay that much for the supplement.
If money wasn't an issue, like if they sent you a box of them, would you try them?
Like a free box to try?
Yeah.
I probably would try it because I'm certain enough that it's safe. Mm-hmm. Because if you can get, a few 100 milligrams in a bit of sour cream or cheese, pretty sure it's safe, assuming that their manufacturing process is also legit and safe.
Right. None of the contamination stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably would try it just to see.
Fair enough.
Would you?
I guess so, but the thing is, I don't know I wouldn't buy... Once it was out, I wouldn't buy the next one because I don't know what to expect from something like this.
Everything, apparently.
Yeah.
All right, shall we talk about astaxanthin?
Yes. So, how did you find Fatty15?
I honestly think the first time I saw Fatty15 was some ad on Instagram.
Okay. And Astaxanthin?
I don't remember because it's been a long time since I've known about it.
Okay.
At least 10 years, maybe more.
When you first found out about Astaxanthin, did you wait for there to be more data coming in?
Before I tried it?
Yes. Have you tried it?
I have tried it. I've actually tried it a few times, and my personal experience has been unclear. Like sometimes I think it might do something, like make my skin a bit better or a bit more resistant to getting sunburn.
And that's the promise of this supplement, is to make your skin smoother or more elastic.
Yeah, that's one of them. There's many others.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not sure really if it does anything. But when I first heard about it, I'm guessing it was around 10 years ago, and there was even then enough data. There were meta-analyses even 10 years ago on it, and there was definitely enough safety data to satisfy my question of if it's safe. It is also, well, I should explain that it's also found in food. It's called a carotenoid, which is like a fat soluble pigment, like a coloring agent. So it makes salmon that pink color in shrimp. It's also in algae as well. That's usually where the supplements come from, like a microalgae.
And people usually get this from their seafood.
That's where it is mostly in the diet.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's not argued to be essential or anything.
Right.
Like Fatty15.
It's not made by one company.
No, there's multiple companies and established companies that have this supplement available.
Okay. And obviously you can't go to astaxanthin.com to buy it.
No, I don't think anybody's got that web address.
Okay. Is it possible that Fatty15 is similar to astaxanthin, but way earlier on in the process? Like, was astaxanthin once, when it was first discovered by some new company, was it also having a shady website and one or two studies that swear by it? And
that's a good question, and I don't know. Like when it first came out, I don't know. I wasn't aware of how that went down, but it would have been early on in the internet, like very early 2000s.
okay.
That it first became available as a supplement.
I see.
So I wouldn't imagine that there would be the same amount of marketing or
Right.
shady websites promoting this, like marketing as science,
Right.
or science as marketing.
It was first described, like its synthesis was first described in 1975, but in 2019 it had an annual market of about $1 billion.
Yeah. One thing to note with Fatty15 or C15 0 is that it was identified much earlier. The founder of the company didn't like discover it.
Right.
She discovered that it might. She says she discovered that it might have benefit to humans and animals.
Okay.
Right. So yeah. So basically, with astaxanthin, I think it's a different story. You can definitely look, and now that we've talked about it and searched for it, you'll probably get, influencers who say it's amazing, and then they promote some product that has it in it. There's of course that.
Yeah, I think having it be one company having it not be from one company is a big plus.
Yeah. So should we maybe go through briefly what the beneficial claims are for astaxanthin and some studies?
Yep.
All right. So from brief research, it looks like it's probably effective for improving skin health, like skin elasticity, skin moisture content. It may be effective in your lipid profile, like decreasing LDL, also in decreasing inflammation. But that's there's some conflicting evidence that it might not actually help. There's actually some evidence that it might increase sports performance.
Okay.
Which I found a bit interesting. There's also newer evidence that it might help prevent neurodegeneration, but that definitely needs more research and is kind of an initial.
What is it about these that you find more convincing than all the claims that Fatty15 had?
There's just a lot more research on it.
Okay. So in each of these claims,
there's
multiple
meta-analyses.
Okay.
And a meta-analysis is a study that looks at a group of other studies
Right.
that are investigating the same thing, like astaxanthin on a specific health metric or something.
Okay.
And I've just got a few meta-analyses that I picked out. There was one meta-analysis on skin that said astaxanthin may be effective in reducing skin aging and have promising cosmetical potential as it improves moisture content and elasticity and reduces wrinkles. And I'm just going to show this. This is kind of how the meta-analysis looks at the different studies within the meta-analysis. So if you look at the table A is the top one. It looks at the increase in moisture content of the skin.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of the studies here has kind of it's called a forest plot. So it shows the confidence interval of the effect on that skin elasticity. So does it favor the placebo or does it favor astaxanthin? And with the point estimate and the confidence interval around that. And if you kind of take that all together, it's that black diamond at the bottom. And if the whole black diamond is to the right of the zero line, it's probably beneficial to favor, meaning that it favors astaxanthin in terms of skin elasticity.
With 95% confidence.
No, the confidence interval is 95%. So that's the bars around the green.
Gotcha.
The green dot.
And what isn't it also affecting the width of the diamond? Because the one below it is.
Yeah. So if it's wider, the diamond will be wider.
Okay.
But you can see it's not totally clear because there are some studies that, say it doesn't do much of anything.
Right. Like so for the skin elasticity, most of the studies are in agreement, except for that one that's kind of dead in the center, that it improved the skin and elasticity. So the diamond is pretty clearly on the right side of the zero line. But also the B one...
Table A is the moisture content.
Moisture content.
Yeah, table B is the elasticity.
Okay. With B, it's similar. Most of them are to the right, but two are dead on the center, and one of them is kind of the low end of the confidence interval is left of the zero line. So the diamond is a lot wider, but still, because the ones that are to the right are far more to the right, the diamond is still clearly in favor of astaxanthin.
Correct.
And in the last one is the negative side in favor of astaxanthin.
Yeah, that's correct. They just flipped it. Yeah.
What is it measuring?
C is the reduction in wrinkle depth.
So they somehow measured the wrinkle depth. And again, some studies saw that the depth was reduced, except for a couple that was more or less stayed the same. But the diamond is kind of touching the zero, but is still on the side that's in favor of astaxanthin.
Yeah. So technically, you would still say that this one actually doesn't
inconclusive
favor astaxanthin at that 95% confidence interval.
But it kind of does.
But it's close. It's really it is close. It is close. Yeah.
Like if you were to have it 94%, then it would be.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So that's just one meta-analysis looking at skin that shows overall it probably does have a beneficial effect on skin. There's a few other ones, one on health outcomes of adults at risk of metabolic syndrome, and there's another one that looked at effect on obesity, blood pressure, different metrics, and another one that looks at fatigue, motor function, and cognition, and one that looks at physical activity, lipid profile. So there's just lots of them. I'll read a couple of sentences from them. The one on fatigue says, we conclude that astaxanthin supplementation could significantly enhance aerobic exercise efficiency, especially at higher doses and for longer durations. And just another one, the beneficial effects of astaxanthin can be considered to reduce oxidative stress, stimulate blood vessel growth, improve mitochondrial regeneration, protect CPT1, which is an enzyme that is crucial for fatty acid metabolism that helps your mitochondria, and activate the NRF2 ARE signaling pathway, which is just a mechanism to fight against oxidative stress. And that might have some protection against neurodegeneration, but that is a bit speculative. They definitely state that they have to do more research on that. So it's just to say that overall, it looks like there's something there with astaxanthin.
There's way more meta-analyses on way more different things that all point to a positive outcome.
Right. And there's more. These are just a few that I found interesting.
Gotcha. Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
If there was one evil company behind astaxanthin with a nefarious CEO, and what's stopping them from writing these meta-analyses, picking the studies that favored their drug, and just creating the guides that it's a lot more established? And because the authors still pick which studies get included, no?
Yes, technically they pick, but there's procedures that you're supposed to follow ideally when you create a meta-analysis to reduce the possibility that you're cherry picking the studies.
Okay.
Or your scientific honor.
Right, but this would be a person who doesn't care about that.
Right. I don't think there's anything stopping somebody who really wants to show something, because I'm sure you'll find some journal to publish it. Okay. And that's really the only independent judge of your meta-analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once it's published, people can tear it to shreds if they want to.
Right.
And they should, if it is clearly biased.
Does that happen?
It does happen sometimes. It probably should happen more often.
Okay.
But it's an issue, yeah.
Okay, so it does happen.
There's a whole branch of scientific research that tries to look at biases in studies and how to identify it.
Okay,
based on
good to
language
know.
And funding sources and things like that.
Well, good to know that exists at least.
Yeah, but they also conclude that it is widely done.
Yeah, I don't suppose there's an easy way to find out.
It's hard. Even if you can get the underlying data, that makes it better because you can at least do your own analysis on it. But not all journals require that you provide the data, the raw data.
Okay.
And make it available easily for anybody to get.
Right.
And that also, you can also modify the raw data if you really want to.
Right, you can just lie, I guess.
Yeah, and that's happened, and that's been discovered.
Right.
Of course, there are some high-profile cases of that.
If I wanted to let's say, make a study that says smoking is good for your lungs, could I like get 30 different groups of different people, run the same study, and just publish the one that showed the highest and just discard the rest?
You should look into the history of how they did those sort of things back when they were fighting with the government. the cigarette companies did, basically very shady things. That has been done.
Okay. So I didn't just discover the first time. My next question was, after looking at all this data, will you take astaxanthin?
I think I will definitely kind of keep an eye on the research.
What is missing for you?
Okay, one issue I am unclear of with astaxanthin is that a lot of its benefits are touted as being antioxidant based.
Mm-hmm.
And at least from what I understand, that whole antioxidant, that whole theory, it doesn't hold up too well in actual humans.
What does that mean? Antioxidant based.
There was a theory big in the 90s and I guess early 2000s that if you took high dose antioxidants that reduced the amount of free radicals from your cells, that would kind of just lead to greater health, longer life, better functioning of your organs. Just that lots of the effects of agings were due to increased free radicals and oxidants in your body, and this was a way to prevent that from happening.
Okay.
At a high level, that didn't seem to play out in the real world. In many of in the larger studies, the long-term studies. So I'm just a bit hesitant with that they're like relying a lot on that antioxidant message. But there's a lot of other stuff there.
But the trials that you showed weren't that, were they?
Some of them said that it was a benefit that they reduced oxidative stress and things. But yeah, I do think there might be enough in astaxanthin where it's doing it in kind of that it's turning on pathways in your body that help with reducing oxidative stress intrinsically, rather than just saying, okay, this compound is just reducing free radicals.
Okay.
By itself.
So wouldn't that be a good thing?
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. I mean, one problem with taking it is that I don't want to just keep adding on to my supplement list. And I'm kind of at the level where if I add something, I would like to remove something.
Okay. Because
so many things like argue that they do really similar things.
Okay.
And I think you can overload
So while the studies seem promising, these specific benefits are either covered by other supplements you're taking in a higher confidence way, or your other benefits offer more benefits that you don't feel the need to replace one of them with astaxanthin.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. In a kind of simplistic way. Yeah. Yeah. But that might change.
Sure.
if I look into it
Right.
more. It's difficult because you don't want to. I just don't want to keep adding.
No, I understand. I'm just looking
supplement after supplement.
like this improvement to fatigue, skin, and all those, and I'm just thinking, why not?
I am interested in the physical, like the exercise efficiency and the reduction in fatigue, and also the cognitive benefits.
Yeah.
Like if there's more research on that and it seems to point in the positive direction, that could push it to replace something else.
Is it something that's still being actively researched?
Yeah, a couple of these meta-analyses are from last year, so it is still being researched. Yeah, I think, or maybe I'll just take it every once in a while. Randomly get a bottle if it's on sale. Yeah, I've gone back and forth on astaxanthin at times.
Right. It's not something that you felt.
I don't think so.
Right. But then again, very few things.
Yeah. So for me, it does check the boxes. I think it's been around a long time. It's clear it's got a lot of safety data behind it. And it is probably effective, at least in some things that I think are important to me. So I don't know. maybe in a month and you can ask me again and I'll have started taking it.